All right.
It is visible.
So, all right, sure. So I'll just take few minutes and take it through quickly for the benefit of audience and everyone. So basically, if we look at India, we are unique country with 1.3 billion people, and with this 1.3 billion people, the it's really, oh my God, like everywhere people, and any policy you make, any system you create has so many problems and so many hassles. But my last slide will say much more than this. So I would say this 1.3 billion people, and no one health agenda can fit everyone. And that is where something we have to remember. This country is unique on that account. And you see, we are a country of a very sharp contrast. This is one OPD, this is one OPD, this is one healthcare facility, this is another healthcare facility, and this is another healthcare structure. So all this coexist very in a great harmony in this country, and that is the uniqueness, that everyone accommodates the other one. And we need to work towards this, that how do we cater to everyone. And then this was the way, Bombay local train, and this is elegant train, metro train of Delhi. So how much the world has changed. The world is really changed in the last 2 decades, and then that's everything has changed. And this was the standard of beauty, and now this is the standard of beauty. That has dramatically changed. This was the way telephones were used maybe 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and this is the way now telephones are available. Go to the shop and your telephone available. But all this change in the physical attributes, what it has done, it has changed our life. It has changed our life to a great extent, the way we communicate to people. And this young lady and this lady in the hut, you see, both are communicating. This is the way world has changed for us. And this was the way, I'm sure, all senior people would have seen, this was the way blood was stored. And this is so elegantly now blood is stored. And how the world has changed for all of us. So I think the technology which has come in our life has changed every aspect of our life, and it majorly has impacted healthcare and of course our social life. So by doing all this, what else has happened with this? So this was the way, if you look in 1990, we were falling sick, communicable diseases, maternal, neonatal challenges, nutritional challenges. And 2000, this is the data of 2016. The pattern is completely changed. Non-communicable diseases have become more prevalent. And let's forget about COVID for the moment. And COVID has again changed this landscape, and the injuries are more. So there are a lot of other diseases have come into the play, and that has certainly changed the canvas of our healthcare system. Now, if you look at the overall scene in India, the disease of developing world, we already face the problem of tuberculosis, diarrhea, nutritional challenges, etc., etc. On the top of it, we have acquired the diseases of developed world thanks to McDonald's, KFC, where there is a gym on the ground floor and KFC on the top floor. So this is the economic model we are following. Genetically transmitted diseases is again on the rise, and sheerly because of 1.3 billion, though percentage wise it may be very less, but if you calculate absolute number from 1.3 billion people is huge. And again, the rare diseases. So there's a huge disease burden, and the poor health policies and severe shortage of healthcare workforce. These are the very compelling tasks if you look at the healthcare system in India today. And when you look at how to cater to this healthcare needs, where the diseases, such a huge disease burden, so there's a huge gap between demand and supply. So India collects about 11 million units per year, but if you go by WHO standard, they say 1% of population, which amounts to about 13 million units. And there are another studies which Dr. Ravi will be talking about in Lancet, which has come with the astronomical number what is required for this country. So there's a huge demand of blood and blood product and plasma product in this country, which remains unmet. So typically, with the old conventional wisdom was the one group, one unit of blood will help one patient. But what has happened in the course of time with the development of technology, the red cells, platelets, and plasma and cryoprecipitate have come, and they can help 4 patients. And if you further process the plasma, you make albumin, IVIG, etc., etc. So from 1 patient to 4 and 4 to many, this is what has happened. And these are the slides, old pictures, but these slides are what typically our, blood bank setting faces, that there was an acute shortage of blood in Bangalore, country like Bangalore. So it's a serious public health concern if you look. And these are some of these slides a few years back and as of like last year, where the huge wastage of blood is also a very serious concern on the account of public healthcare structure. The questions are many, the answers are many, the defense is too many, but we need to figure out how do we help to cater to this country in the sense of safe blood supply and its product. That's the fundamental question we need to address. And with Corona, I'm sure these speakers have so much of knowledge and they are coming from the ground reality. They have done such a tremendous work, Dr. Ravi, Dr. Manisha, Dr. Gajendra, and I'm sure they will share their experience that how they have faced it during the time. And I know we come from a land of karma where we feel whatever good deed we do, it comes back to you. And that is what this is one of the slide, my favorite slides. And this is another cartoon where Indian hemophilic who died in an accident in Mumbai some time back, and he donated his organs back to to people, which means he would have probably received anti-hemophilic factor, factor 8 from so many people, made from plasma of so many people. But then when he was saying goodbye to this world, he was brain dead and he donated his organ. And this is the only example you find in the world where a hemophilic has donated his organ. And this was his way to repay to the society while saying goodbye to this world. So I think this is a great nation where I started with. It is a unique, no doubt about it. We have our own hiccups and hassles, but that's the way of life. And I think this is the country where we exist in pretty much in harmony and coexistence. And that is something absolutely commendable where a Mercedes gives a space to Autovala and Autovala gives space to a scooter. And nowhere probably one would find this. And I think this is the country we need to find a harmoniously coexistence with each other. And I'm sure with this platform we can say if we donate the blood and how can we help other and coexist and support each other. So I think with this slide I will end my presentation. And now with this I would request I would start with this. So first chance I will give it to Dr. Ravi to share his experience into the transfusion medicine. And I think he will be able to share a lot of work what he has done in Pune during the COVID time.
So like rightly said, it's because the scene has changed from pre-COVID and the current scene. The donors, even the normal patients they are falling in the hospital, even the healthcare services they require. Now the scene has changed so much of that. The patients they are so scared of to come to the hospital, and more doubly affected the donors, the voluntary donors. The same way they are scared to come forward, they are scared to blood donation, so huge scarcity we have faced. And this is not for our Pune, even my center. This is a worldwide scene. Even for the state, all over the India, the same scene it is there, and everybody have the same experiences. Now, because the time has came, we don't have any much stock to support our patients. We have managed in that time as 2 or 3 units because we have to be reserved for 2 or 3 units for multiple patients. And despite of requesting the donors, they are like very scared to come to the hospital. And the lockdown, we are not able to conduct the voluntary blood donations. So these are the huge challenges we face during that time. So now I'm just able to discuss you about the voluntary donors perspective, how they can come forward, but the benefit to come forward for the society. So this is like how does blood save life? It is my topic today. Rightly said, in 2005, the World Health Assembly realized we should appreciate the voluntary donors in some way. So that's the reason 14 June they have chosen the day as the celebration for the Blood Donors Day. This is the Thanksgiving to the worldwide level. And this year in 2021, the slogan is "Give blood and keep the world beating." So it means with their kind donations, the patients those are in need, they can able to heart there used to beat continuously. So that is the pulsating heart by saving lives and giving the more blood to the needy patients. The scene is quite different. Rightly said, there is like the crisis worldwide, even the India as well. The Lancet already covers because the need for in our country that is drastically very low. The 41 million populations they need the blood units, and this is the pre-COVID era. And now the reduction is almost 60% from the normal donation. So you can understand the condition, how the conditions, the current scene we are facing, with the patients are facing right now. Even you just heard the news in few days back. There is like in the one in the state of the Bihar, the one person with the thalassemia kid, it traveled almost a 400 kilometers to get 1 unit blood. So see the wide variety and variation in India we are facing right now, because one is like more advanced centers apart from the like more basic the centers. So but the need for blood is everywhere the same. They need a blood to survive and they revive their lives. So that need to be taken into consideration. So the donors, they can able to like save the life by the voluntary blood donations. How does blood save the life? Because there is no substitute. It's everybody knows that. So every 2 seconds, someone needs blood. It is well apparent. More than 36,000 of blood donations are needed every day, and more than 1 million, unfortunately, the patients those are diagnosed with the cancer, and then the conditions those are required regular blood transfusions. They are adding into the current scene. That's most unfortunate like conditions, and during their chemotherapy and the treatment protocol, they require regular blood support and the transfusion. And the patient who encounter the accidents, they may require up to 40-60 units at the minimum, we can say. If they like a massive blood transfusion protocol, then it goes to the hundreds and hundreds. And thalassemia, sickle cell disease patients, they are the regular blood transfusion dependent patients. Without blood, they're not able to like extend their lives. So for them, the blood donors are the boons to like salvage them to them. So there is no substitute. That's the reason the blood donors are the lifesavers for them. Another question arises because is blood the COVID-19 transmit through the blood donations? The condition is no, because until now, even the like world literature says there is not a single case they transmit through the blood transfusion. So to support this, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare come across, they have published the guidelines and issued the guidelines. They clearly stated there is no case transfusion transmitted infection like COVID-19. So the donors can donate safely with taking all the precautions. So don't worry, you can come forward. There is no risk for the COVID-19 transmission through the blood transfusions. And Dr. Aswani rightly says up to 3 or 4 lives we can save, because your whole blood donations, because now with the era of more modernization to a blood component therapy, because blood is a medicine. We have to give a diagnosis and disease wise. So from the whole blood we can separate red cells which are required for the anemic patients with different conditions, and the plasma in the form of plasma plasma. So these patients on the cryoprecipitate we can prepare, so that the protein factors patients are required massive transfusion protocols and other supportive medications they require for the plasma transfusions for these patients. The platelets, those are like thrombocytopenic, the counts are low, like in dengue seasons they require more platelets. The cancer patients, hematoma patients like aplastic anemia, and the patient under chemotherapy, the platelets counts usually goes down, and they require more regular support for the platelets. So these are 2, 3, or 4. The patients can get benefit from your single donation of the blood. The effect of the blood, the blood makes 7% of the body, and we differentiate into like 3 components to separate. The topmost is the plasma, count 55%. Bottom is the red cells, 45%, and in between there is a white cell, the platelets. That's less than 1%. So how we used to separate? We have like each and every the centers they have like dedicated centrifuges, and accordingly they prepare the different blood component from your single unit whole blood donations. And we have also like a facility for the specialized blood products like the single donor platelets, even for the plasma, for conventional plasma they use for during COVID seasons. The specifically only that particular product is to collect and then given to the patients. The advantage because only single donors can provide a full complete dose to the patients. So patient get a more benefited with the specialized product for the donations. And our the healthy bone marrow usually make whatever deficit is come across the blood donation immediately replace. Some of the like the plasma within a few hours can replace, and the platelets in the day, and then red cells in a few weeks. So that is nothing to worry about. If you are fit and fine, your donated the volume and the cellular component immediately replaced with the due course of time. That's the reason you have to follow certain donation interval for the blood donations. So the donation is it's a safe process. Only say like sterile bags and the needles are used. So there is no reuse for the any of kind of the disposables. And the process split into 4 parts, right from the donor registrations, brief medical history and the many physical examination has to be done for the donors, and those are fit. They find they can able to donate the blood. We have selected and then forward to the blood donations. And after donation, there is a refreshment, so we can observe them and then they can relax. So this is the entire process, and then normally take for blood donation less than 10 minutes. Entire process 30 to 40 minutes, you can say. And healthy donor can donate platelets once, we can say, like 2 times in a month. So within a 48 hours in emergency, they can donate, and at maximum 24 times in a year. That is they can do it. And each and every year needs to test for the infectious diseases. That for HIV infection, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, malaria, and syphilis. And those are qualified for the screening criteria and testing criteria, only eligible for the transmission for the patient. So each and every blood center is to take care of this minimum and the basic requirement for the safety for the blood. Regarding the criteria for the donor selections, the age up to 18 years to 65 years, they can donate the blood. The weight, 45 kg is the minimum for the blood donation, but any one can donate up to 350 ml if the weight ranges 45 to 55 kg, and more than 55 kg, they can donate the 45 ml, 450 ml of whole blood donations. And interval, 3 months or 90 days for the male and 4 months or 120 days for the females. And anyone who has donated whole blood, so after 4 weeks or 28 days later, they can donate the platelets. So this is again some additional of the guidelines. Previously, like they have to wait for 3 months, but now because of there is less loss of the red cells, only the platelets we can extract it, and so they can donate the after 48 days for 28 days from the whole blood donation. So then the platelet donation. Hemoglobin need to be equal or more than 12.5 gram per deciliter, and blood pressure need to be under control. Afebrile, respiratory, the donor should be free from the acute respiratory disorders. They should have some light breakfast or meal before it comes to the blood donations, and they should not be influenced with any alcohol intoxication at the time. So ideally, we advise them they should not take any alcohol intake once they are planning for the blood donations. So this is the advice for the blood donors they want to come for the blood donations. There are some certain situations where we are not bothered about to. I mean, the donors should not be bothered about to they reject. Like any person who has migraine medications, not in severe frequencies, less or less than one. So once per week they can donate the blood. The person on anxiety or mood disorders medications, benign like hypothyroidism, well controlled medications. The patient, like the female donors, on oral contraceptives, they're taking multivitamins, sedatives, hypertensive with the on control with minimum medications, and cholesterol lowering medications. So these are conditions, the situations where the donors we not need to defer and then use to accept for the blood donation. So these persons can come forward themselves to volunteer blood donations. So again dilemma, and because of the COVID situations now, everybody are in the queue to get a vaccinations. So the most frequent query is to come how can when I supposed to donate the blood after the vaccination. So that is very clearly provided the guidelines, like after 14 days from the vaccination they can come and donate the blood and the needed blood components. So there is no confusion right now. So whether so that is 14 days or 2 weeks is the different for the post vaccination donations. And those persons who recovered from the COVID-19 and the history of contact, or they are traveled to the other state or the other country, so 28 days for them for the different period for the blood donation. So now the plasma donation, because this is the most readily available. Now the vaccination has started now, but before that we have seen all of the situations the bombardment of the patients. They are rushed into the hospital, and no clear-cut the guideline, even the medications, which medication is supposed to give to the patient, and how we responded. That time, because the conventional plasma is like centuries, they are getting benefited because their preform antibodies are there, their passive immunity can provide, so their capacity to neutralize the viruses. So same way, the conventional plasma that or COVID-19 recovered plasma is to collect from the apheresis machine, and then can work as an adjuvant. It's not a replacement for the basic treatment and the treatment. It's kind of like adjuvant to the current the treatment protocol in the therapy. So the donors again, those are recovered more than 28 days. they can able to come for that like donations, and must be symptomatic at the time of the diagnosis of the disease. And once they come for the donations, the center is to test for the antibodies, and those are antibody titer for the IgG. They are qualified the plasma donation, and the same plasma is used for the patient who require the plasma transfusions. So another is like how can I donate the blood? So you can search, you can like nearby the centers and either hospital based or the standalone centers. They have facility to have a blood donations. They can please go ahead on them. When you can search on the Googles and every the sites, they can identify you to which is the nearby blood center where you can go and donate your blood. And this is the need for the patients more as compared to the pre-COVID era. So your voluntary blood donations definitely will help to save their lives. So there is, again, I'm telling you, there is no replacement for the blood donations and the blood and blood components. Only you can able to save the blood to the patient and the life of the patient. So please come forward, go ahead, and then nearby blood center, and then do the good work from your side. So this is all about the community blood donation in there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi, for such an elegant presentation and taking us through about the blood donation and need during the COVID time and how the scene has changed. So it was really very informative. I'm sure it would have helped a lot of people to understand, and you have answered many questions without asking them, how, what was the situation, what can they do, and how they can, land support in this such a situation. So thank you very much, Dr. Ravi, for your
It's always a pleasure.
very good talk. And so now, can I request Dr. Manisha Srivastava? She is medical superintendent from AIMS Bhopal. She has she had taken this assignment, but she still has set up the blood bank at Bhopal Guest Tragedy Hospital and done very good work in the transfusion medicine and the research, and a veteran in the field of transfusion medicine. Some of the few who have done their MDs in transfusion medicine from ACTGI Lucknow. So, Dr. Manisha, welcome, and all yours now.
Yeah, I'll try sharing my.
Yeah, sure.
I had sent my this to you.
Yeah, I have received it. You want me to project it?
Yeah, I think it's better because
Sure, sure. Yeah, just I will say my team. Yeah, Shivantika, you are doing it. Yeah, Shivantika is projecting it.
Okay. So now I can see Gajendra sir, and good evening to everyone. And on such a beautiful day, we are celebrating World Blood Donor Day, and it joins all of us together who are working for the field of transfusion medicine. Every year we get together on 14 June somehow or the other. And as RP has also mentioned, and everybody, that these are very testing times for everyone, especially in the healthcare field. And the today the World Blood Donor Day also reminds us that how important our donors are. So basically, this is to celebrate the gift given by the donors to all of us. That is the main purpose of this day, but also to remind us that how continuously we have to work to recruit, retain, and really respect the people who give this gift of life. And somehow for years together, the blood has still been a component of what you say is, we rely on the karma, and a human can only give to human. And in my presentation, basically, I focused on blood donation during pandemic times and how things have changed. I also established a blood bank of AIMS Bhopal, but somehow in the testing times, plasma therapy has been incoming and going. Some of the states have been following plasma therapy, and all our colleagues are so much pressurized with this new kind of therapy which has come up, and we have to take blood from people who had COVID. And very many places there is not so much of facilities to test for neutralizing antibodies. And there are a lot of confusions. People have been, going for just whole blood collection. On even PRBC collection, we had a seminar for the young scientists, like Young Forum for our ISTM, where we had a discussion, and Dr. Joshi, who's such a senior person, has published a paper also on that. And we could collect blood, and PRBC could be taken from anyone, be it a COVID person who has recovered. And the same plasma can be used for, as a convalescent plasma or as a plasma therapy. So from March 2020, I think the whole country is busy treating COVID patients, and non-COVID, only those who have emergencies and, they have come a little on a side track. But blood is needed for all. Blood is needed in all times. The thalassemics have not gone anywhere. The people who receive the products of plasma, who are dependent, the hemophiliacs, and the cancer patients, and who have been treated, the patients who are receiving transplants, and patients who are undergoing emergency surgeries during trauma. So everybody has actually kind of received blood. Can I have the presentation?
Yeah, next.
I cannot see it.
Is it not visible to you?
No. Yeah, now it is.
Okay.
So I have been also very active. I call it the Corona Kal, and I say that it is blood ka akal. So everybody is facing that kind of a famine of blood, because plasma, platelets, red blood cells, convalescent plasma, it has become a mix of everything. So my messages have been going on to people. Next, please. And our focus for this year's campaign, because we are celebrating the Blood Donor Day today, is give blood and keep the world bleeding. And this is the WHO message to everybody. And obviously, if your heart is beating, then you are alive. So if you're giving blood, then the whole world is alive. So this is the message, and it highlights the contribution of people who have been coming up and pulsating the world by saving lives and improving other people's health. So blood donation has not gone anywhere in the COVID, and will never be able to, go, because everybody needs blood. Even if the COVID patients, many of them have undergone red blood transfusions also. Next, please. And also the specific objective of this year's campaign, I would like to highlight, is that you have to thank the blood donors all over the world, create wider public awareness for the need for regular unpaid blood donation, and promote the community values of blood donation in enhancing community solidarity and social cohesion. Encourage youth to embrace the humanitarian call to donate blood. So it mainly focuses on the youth, to celebrate the potential of youth as partners in promoting health. So this year's campaign was to focus on this. Next. So when you look at this COVID-19, it has caused severe, and especially this second wave, the number of deaths and the toll of people suffering has gone up like huge numbers. Next. And the extent will depend, obviously. Now there's no doubt that the whole community has suffered. If we had quality healthcare systems, we have to develop so many, and the overall burden of disease, risk of transfusion transmitted infections, cost effectiveness in blood safety interventions, this has all been affected very badly by the COVID, and we need to have an effective and accurate data-driven risk assessment to actually take precautions, as well as most appropriate decisions to transfuse. Especially when you look at convalescent plasma, there was a huge study in the country, and first it was used as a very common therapy, but people forgot that at a particular moderate window of that disease was only that it was effective, provided it had the neutralizing antibodies to affect the virus. So later on, now the government has removed it as a therapy, but in between it has been a long story. Next, please. So the need of blood, as I said, is always there, and blood services have to take, steps to assess, plan, and respond appropriately and proportionately. And as RP said, and smaller camps and regularly motivating, this has taken a big toll on us, because we need to now motivate patients, we need to motivate their families, and also we need to motivate the donors, because the supplies have to be by way for patients as well as for regular non-COVID patients. Next. So if you look at what I was saying, thalassemics, blood-dependent patients, emergency and trauma, COVID-19, and patients undergoing surgery. So all these people have the blood needs, and that will be there forever. Next. And this was said by the director of US Food and Drug Administrations, that we need people to start running out in force to give blood. That urgent call to call action coming from Peter Marks. So this is like, this has been coming up from, as Dr. RP also said, that all over the world. It's not only our country, it's the world. Next. So when we have this blood transfusion services, they have to exclude the risk donors to maintain safety. So we have to take the contact history. A lot of travel history was required, but then this lockdowns came, and we had so many other kind of guidelines in place, and every day we would see, first time in the history of, I think, our country, we would say, Ministry of Health doing press conferences every day at 4 o'clock, and they are giving the data and giving the details. And then we should see whether they are confirmed cases and whether they are acceptable or not. So this has added to the difficulties we generally face, because we have so many other reasons that we don't ask people not to donate. And this pandemic has come as another one. Next, please. So social distancing, infection control measures, and blood collection. So I think the blood mobiles have come really useful. And this is one which I designed for the Bhopal Memorial Hospital. This was also a great experience for me. And we have 2 donation couches, and it's very, very useful. They are running this every day. And it's a very small vehicle which can go and stand everywhere. And this has come as very handy and useful for donations. It can be sanitized, we can have limited staff, limited exposure to our blood bank, and we can collect blood from people who are healthy and who are, getting accepted as blood donors. Next, please. So this all we know, that how a blood bank functions. So I will not go in details, but always the assessment for fitness for donation is a very, very important part, because the blood is the raw material. So if we want to stop the hepatitis being spread to people, and HIV and other diseases, then this is a very important part which we cannot even forget in pandemic. Next. And here is the importance of donor also. So donor education, the voluntary donation, we have to, be very, very regular about. And self-deferral program, we must have a self-deferral kind of an issue also, that people should come up with their history, and they should be able to, they should be so educated or maybe made aware that they self-defer themselves. Next, please. Next. So, geographically, we have this restriction, and that's why the blood collection gets seized. Now there's, as he said, that there's lockdown, and it is so difficult. So once we have a voluntary donor program in place, then we can decide place and person to, be contacted. And then obviously appropriate clinical use of blood and blood components, which has been, talked about for so long, that we must have proper guidelines, and appropriately people need to be transfused, is so important when we are running out of this important resource. And hemovigilance, of course, to all, especially now we add the convalescent plasma recipients into our hemovigilance program, which is also very important. Next, please. So, while mass gatherings and all have been stopped, we need to maintain safe blood supplies. So, you can have Next, please. I can show you the slide where, what kind of things have to be managed, like the person is wearing mask and the donor is wearing mask, and social distancing measures are there, cough etiquettes are to be there, safe disposal of all the products is to be there, those, and biomedical waste guidelines have to be followed. So you can have, this is being done in the blood mobile itself. Next, please. So on the, I will not go in details, but the guidelines, as you had mentioned, the dynamics, Ranjit had mentioned the dynamics. So every day, you have to look at the guidelines, which keep changing. And initially it was decided that the gap between two donations of vaccinated people will be 28 days. But then it has been through an OM on 5th May this year that the deferral of blood donors post COVID-19 vaccine is 14 days after receiving each or any dose. This is important. So if you are getting 2 doses, but the gap has been in different vaccines, it is different. So they have given just a broad guideline of 14 days. But we have to be very careful in taking the history, what vaccine he took, what is the gap in between. But anybody who gets a vaccination at least can donate after 14 days. Next, please. When we look at the potential risks, it is very important that education is very important, and nowadays media is also playing so much important role. But I think the advertisements and the awareness messages from blood centers are not so many. People are being focused, just to go and give vaccinate, and blood donation messages have to come up, and the clear message that when a person can donate. Next, please. And also, when people have suffered disease, like suppose somebody had a viral illness after vaccination, so all those history taking from the donors is very important. And quarantine of components with delayed release based on the absence of a reported subsequent illness in a donor is an option which we can keep. So just in nutshell, I will say that the blood availability in these times is lot dependent on what history and what kind of discussion and education and awareness we are presenting to donors, blood donors. And here is the role of regular, voluntary, repeat donors who are already educated, who could be taken into pool easily. They could be our motivators also. Next, please. Next slide. Next, please. So it's all about hemovigilance and details, and also mitigating the risk of staff and donor exposure to COVID-19. Because we have seen that a lot of, if one person gets positive, and then everybody in the staff will get positive. So we have to really control that also, because we can't stop the blood bank from functioning. So we have put also the rosters accordingly. Even in offices, the way we have worked, so we have, the work has come down sometimes for blood collections. So the staff can be rotated so that the exposure is less. That is what we have done. But I'm sure all blood banks have faced that this person has come positive and this person has, spread the infection to everybody. So social distancing measures, masks, eating facilities have to be different, and all public health measures have to be taken for the staff also. Next, please. Standard lab biosafety practices have to be combined based on international and national guidelines. Biomedical waste management has to be taken into account. The COVID waste and the sample discarding and all has to be very carefully done. So as every healthcare worker is at risk, the similar risk is to the staff of the blood bank, and we have to mitigate that. Next, please. So, blood donation numbers should be very closely monitored. Only what is required should be collected. That is one. And, you can have your camps, small camps and public awareness campaigns to have that flow continuously going on, and proactive communication strategy. There is a lot of anxiety and fear in people, as Dr. RP also said, that we have to combat that, by creating informations. there was so much of fear in healthcare workers when the first wave came, and you have seen that, I have also played a very important role in vaccination drives in our hospital, and motivated so many people. And my experience in blood banking is coming a lot of help to me, because we are not only related to patients, but we deal with laymen and we motivate people. So we had a huge drive for vaccination in healthcare workers. Around 90% of our healthcare workers got vaccinated, and that impact we saw in the second wave, that we didn't have so many people from the healthcare worker side getting infected, even if they were mild infections. Next, please. Next. To be really true, we never had any, difficulty, because we did small camps. Even here, we had so many plasma donors coming up, and smaller hospitals also coming up to help us for donations. And this is said by the US Surgeon General, that you can still go out and give blood. We are worried about potential blood shortages in the future. Social distancing does not have to mean social disengagement, and this is what is our message to our young people. And for both, like, we have to help this country getting, everybody should get vaccinated, everybody should, be motivated to help others. And pandemic has taught us a huge huge lessons, that this is one of those. And somehow, this is just a philosophical thought, that distances have come down also. We are virtually connected in real, and that is a great experience, and it's been a learning lesson for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Manisha. It was really very, very well presented, and more than presentation, it expressed your experience in going through this journey of, these slides speak much more than it does not really speak. It shares a lot of experience, how you have traveled in your position of administration, in the position of transfusion medicine specialist. And what is very important, you said at the last slide that social engagement is very, very critical. It's not only regarding blood banking. We are talking to people who are struggling with the mental healthcare issues, where we need to connect to people, reach out to people, how best we can help our colleagues, co-workers, friends, and family. So it's a really testing time as a society for all of us. And I think there are a lot of studies which have been done, which says if you do a good social deed, it does give you a sense of satisfaction. So it does help you mentally on one account or the other account. So I think it is one way to travel in that direction also. It was very elegantly present. Thank you, Manisha. It was absolutely great to listen your experience.
To be really true, as a blood banker, I will say that we, the blood bankers and the transfusion medicine people, are much more geared up to deal with such pandemics and emergency situations, because we face them every day. We have to give blood in emergency.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
also we are socially connected, and we
Right,
can
right.
we can actually connect to outside world also. So it has really helped me to work on a larger platform.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. I mean, you are the one who deals like from 18 years to 80 years of age. No other branch of medicine would give you that opportunity. And it is the only branch of medicine where you not only deal with the patient, you deal with the product as a
Public,
blood,
yeah.
right? And public. So you are at a much more that advantageous position to, help the community, society much at a larger level. So thank you, Manisha. It was absolute pleasure to have you. And now I think I will spend some time with Gajendra. He has been a very good old friend as long as I remember. I visited, if I remember the date correct, 29 January 2005. I visited his center, and that was the first blood bank from where I started collecting the plasma in my first assignment. So Gajendra has, been a very, very good friend and very, very supportive for all our efforts. So Gajendra, I know you are not ready with presentation, which is absolute great to talk to you, and it's gives a change also in the flow of the talk. So I think Gajendra, as we are hearing from Manisha, Ravi, and everyone, that there is a huge challenge to make sure that blood which is collected gets collected. Point number one, then it remains safe and it helps people. So do you think now there is any requirement from the government perspective in sense of the regulation, in sense of the law, which should come into the play, looking at the long-term effect of this pandemic and that would help us in going forward right now. So do you have some thoughts around it?
I think, first of all, let me tell you very clearly, when you told Manisha and Ravi are going to speak, I knew everything will be covered. So I think most of the thing in steadiness and maintaining inventory, in safety of the donors and safety of the staff have been covered beautifully by both of them. But definitely regulation now is needed in time. Same regulation like what Manisha was talking in vaccination. Once vaccination started coming in my hospital, no health worker was actually ready to get the vaccine. How may you may take it on the first day, but they don't get motivated. So what we did, unsaid, unwritten, I told health worker that if you are not vaccinated and if you get infection, I am not going to treat you free of cost. Just one word, and 100% of them got vaccinated. I got a visit from a principal secretary of health to my vaccination center that what your hospital has done. What is the thing you have done that your people are getting vaccinated simultaneously, others are not? So this kind of regulation, this was an internal regulation of my hospital. But I told him that this kind of regulation has to come. Still, people will not get vaccinated until unless you are after them. We still remember our childhood age. I think Ranjit, you might also remember it. That when they stopped the bus at various stages, the roadways bus at various stages, and got your smallpox or a chickenpox vaccination, and
Right,
it was mandatory. No
right.
choice. If you are riding a bus, you are crossing a toll, you have to get vaccinated. So I think something like this has to be made mandatory in vaccination as well as in donation. Like in many countries, there are there that if you are going to make a license, you need a blood group and license. So go and donate in a blood bank, bring the blood group certificate, and can make a license. I think this will help us in two ways. First of all, it will give us some donors at a very early age, at 18 years of age. Simultaneously, it will give them an experience of blood donation that it is not harmful. Many countries like Saudi and all, they have this kind of regulation that if you want the license, go and donate blood, bring your blood group, which can be entered in. We also have a column of blood group in our license in India, but we don't see a blood group there. So what's the fun in having that column when you don't have this? And secondly, I think something, it has not to be left just as something which is not regulated. We have to now bring in some kind of regulations that we at least have 1% of donations, 1% of healthy people donating blood. We in especially in pandemic time, the fear is so big. Like you have seen, like what Mark's statement Manisha have shown in her talk, that don't fear of wanting to go and donate blood. If in US you can fear of wanting to donate blood, you can imagine what there is in our country. I think this fear was huge. I had one meeting with our chief minister where I told just manage fear through media. First and foremost important is manage fear. I think that is something which has to be dealt with in blood donation also. Because since I think we have started voluntary donation 20 years back, we have all put our energies into voluntary donation for 20-25 years now. But what we are seeing, a pocket of 100% donation, but rest still dependent on replacement donation. I think so. Some regulation, I agree with you, Ranjit, have to be brought in to give them an experience. How may I may agree that they may be not 100% voluntary, non-remunerated, but I think regulation is must, and especially in these times when you don't have a college going on, when you don't have a hostel people living there, you don't have any crowd which you can go and talk to and ask
Sure.
them to donate blood.
Very
I
true.
think some regulation has to come in place. You have
Yeah.
to depend on small family groups to donate. I think that is becoming tedious. I saw your photograph of blood wastage of 2018. It is
Right.
something like giving food to a person who is starving with hunger. It's something like that. I think this is something has to be curtailed. We have to come up with some regulation to steady people, to help people in pandemic and go and donate blood.
Yeah, I think Gajendra, you have raised a uh, I mean, since you work with so many government committees and establishment, and it's a very valid point that somewhere we need to bring the system in order so that we are able to do systematic work on that. But also, Gajen, do you think there is now need to do some epidemiological work on with our donors, donor population, so that post-COVID we do not know what are the going to be the challenges, etc., etc. So, is there something you think you can foresee, you can envisage that something proactively we should think of it, or I think it's a far-fetched right now?
No, it's not far-fetched, Ranjit. We were missing on this thing for last so many years. First SARS came in 2002. You see, before that, if we go for pandemic, it was in 1990, 100 years back. Okay. Still, we are seeing all pictures of 1919 shown, and people are believing that pandemic has come after 100 years. It's not that. The first SARS came in 2002, then in 2004, then in 2012, then in 2017 swine flu. You see, the pandemic was coming in, and we all were ignoring it. So we have ignored it for a long time. Epidemiology study has to be there and has to be done in a very official and in a very official manner. So and the guidelines has to be prepared after that epidemiological study. We are missing on. We had a if you go to a Netflix and see, there is a 6 episode of Pandemic short which took place in our hospital in 2019. They were shooting a pandemic of swine flu around the globe, and in that you can see our hospital projected also. And we thought, before this pandemic, we thought that why have they named swine flu as pandemic? And they've shot it across the globe, because you see, the team went to all the countries and saw pandemic of swine flu. But we were fortunate we had drug. We were fortunate we had vaccination in time. Now this has caught us by surprise. That is why all this harakar, we are seeing all this restriction. I think there has to be an epidemiology department rather than epidemiology ministry now, because now we are going to see lots of pandemic in coming years. That I believe.
Right. Yeah, I think Gajendra, it's a very valid, and every day you open the newspaper, turn on TV channel, and there are stories of all kinds of stories floating around this theory, that theory, synthetic virus, non-synthetic wire. So one really doesn't know what is stored in future, and we may be caught unaware, and God forbid, that we don't know what are the challenges which potentially might come. So with that as a view, I think if I'm not sure, I mean, I'm sure you would agree that there's a lot of work to be done on the public healthcare policies, its monitoring system, which through epidemiology, but also I think government have to commit their resources to the public healthcare awareness, which could be blood banking, which could be epidemiological department, etc., etc. So, do you think that that's a valid point?
Yeah, that's what something is because it's, if you say it's engineered virus or nothing, we don't care about it. But
Right.
if you see a yesterday news, in China, they have isolated 32 virus from a bat, from a single
Right.
species of bat, and they say four are similar to SARS-CoV-19.
Correct.
So okay, now what is next? We have to be ready for all this. Especially in this time, we have to prepare a guidelines. Like this time, what we saw, government also panicked. Not even people, government also panicked. You see, all the decisions were how to control the private sector in doing treatment. All the sector, in all the state you go around, they were trying to control the rates of private sector. Simultaneously, what's the work of government? To give a public health sector, to give their hospital all the things what they
Right.
need for treatment, not to
Correct.
control the private sector.
Very true.
But
Very true.
wherever you see any state, they were trying to control your rates, they were trying to control your guidelines, they were trying to put all the IAs on duty in the hospital. Like
Right.
I have seen two RAs and one IAS sitting in my hospital for a month. Can you imagine? Is this governance?
Yeah.
So
Right.
they have to actually see that their public hospital is ready for these pandemic. And now we cannot afford. There has to be what I say. There has to be accountability coming into our government system. That has to come.
Yeah, very true, Gajendra. It reminds me of my stay with NACO, where I worked for for 1 year in Delhi, and I worked with these bureaucrats, and I was reporting into Health Joint Secretary, and gone through that experience, and the priorities had to be set right. from the government side in the government setup itself. As
Because
I mean, it's a very, very important.
Ranjeev, there is no scarcity of funds. We all know that.
Oh yeah,
There's no
absolutely.
scarcity of fund at all in our country.
Very true. Very true.
It is just how do you put it right.
Very true.
It
Very
is
true.
just how do you put it right.
Yeah, I mean, I
Priorities are
remember.
not set right.
Yeah, I remember, when I was at NACO and debating on certain issue on a project of plasma fractionation and this, and issue came कि यार plasma fractionation के लिए तो हमारे पास 500 crore है, but we can't buy 4 coffee mugs because the policy doesn't allow. So it's like, I mean, government has to set up somewhere a pace to work with it, मतलब somewhere the whole view to the
I
healthcare
think
system has
now
to change.
now is the time, now is the right time to
Right,
actually that government has to prioritize. They have to improve their health sectors, they have to
right.
improve their public health sectors, and they have to
Absolutely.
work on it. They have to work on it.
Yes, very true. And Gajen, the last question I would like to take from you, and then I will give the forum to Dr. Srilata, that we are at a crossroad where we do not know what is stored in future and how do we deal with it as a country. So you put all those thoughts. But what would you say to young donors, which Manisha has said, Ravi has said? How do you motivate them in your setup? I know you run such a beautiful blood bank, and I have seen it maybe 2 years ago, just before the pandemic. So that will be good to hear, your take
I
on that.
think, yeah, that's the time where Dr. Manisha and Ravi has both put in line that we have to now not depend on organizers. We have to have a system where donors also walk in the blood bank and donate. I think some kind, because this generation millennial, is very active and especially very active on the social sites. Now the
Sure.
marketing has to change, our connection has to change. Like what you have shown, the technology, we have to use all our technology and
Mhm.
let this generation have a responsibility of donating blood for themselves and the society. I think that kind of marketing has to come from all the blood banks simultaneously. We have to
Sure.
shoot on social side. We have to make them responsible for donating blood, like it is their duty to donate. We have
Yeah,
to
very
come
true.
with some campaign like that. Then
Yeah, yeah.
only we can beat the
Yeah, yeah. I think
deficiency.
it's a very valid, and I was in Israel some time back before, and I see the sense of civic duty and the nationalism in that small country is simply unbelievable. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. I mean, let's not get into the political part of it, but look at the civic, like, the military training is compulsory both for men and women, and how they come forward and their commitment to the society, community, and countries absolutely exceptional. And I think somewhere we need to travel where we are able to inculcate the value of nationalism and commitment and so on and so forth. I think it's a very valid point.
I think one thing which we have to actually see, I'm very hopeful with this new generation because they are not gatherers.
Yeah,
They are not gatherers. This millennial will not gather money for seven generation to eat up.
absolutely.
I think this is the time to strike them hard and to
Very true.
actually bring nationalism is there in India. In country, you see, you'll stand together whenever it comes to. Like I was seeing day before yesterday, there was a crowdfunding for a Hyderabad child, 16.5 crore from just 62,000 donors. So I
Right.
think we have that kind of capacity.
Very
We have
true.
just to strike a a right
Very,
note.
very true, Gajendra. So I would really say that it was a great to talk to you, Gajendra. After a long time, I was sharing the screen with you, and absolute pleasure. And I think I will give stage to Dr. Sri Lata, who is heading the Victoria Hospital in Bangalore. And all during this pandemic time, I know the blood shortage was such an acute in Bangalore. And again, the story is the same what all of you have gone through. And I remember one of our colleagues had gone to, collect the plasma, and it was very, very heartening to see what is the situation there. So I think in this tough time, how she has sailed through, and it will be so good to go through her experience and how this blood donation has really helped the Bangaloreans. So Dr. Srilata, all for you.
Hello. Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
Dr.
Good
Yeah, please.
evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yes. Thank you, sir. And our difficulties being in the blood bank, and your people, they were attached with us to collect the excess plasma, and we had to request your people also to confront, not only to make up and as well as to be in a healthy status. That is a dual purpose. That was a dual purpose. Of course, our needs and necessities, it's a very vast thing which cannot be fulfilled at all with very little of this thing. Our daily requirement is itself is 150 units, like, so that is a huge unit. And until unless the private people like Red Cross, NGOs and all, they come front to help us out, it is not possible at all. And that is where we stand, like, and that gave me a thought, like is it only with the male donors that we have to run? Why not we have to, we being a female also, we should also come to that level of there's no, absolutely no differentiation at all in the blood donation, whether it is a male or the female, whether in the criteria or otherwise. So why not we build up, we as a female also, we know that the Indian female hemoglobin average value being 10.5 grams only. So how we need to uplift, how I have uplifted, and how I have motivated my own group of surrounding girls who are there with me as students from all over country who come and study here. I have motivated them, and how I have motivated within the short time, and how they have taken their experience to be a good uh, hero in this blood donation. That's what I'm going to go ahead with it. So I think Dr. Ravindra Singh and Manisha they have covered up all this regular criteria matter very well. So this is the slide which everyone knows about it. That is whose blood is most compatible with which recipient. Like, can you run this video? Yes, the same thing. Like, yes, criteria. There is blood pressure also should be normal up to 140 by 90 mm of Hg. They should not have any tablets for that matter. And all these things we know that food, the preparation, how they have to prepare us, they need to prepare themselves to be a good donor from the previous night, previous day itself, by not having uh, tablets, if they are depending on the tablets for at least 24 hours, and have a good food, high caloric food, and good dinner, solid food, and a good sleep also. A normal sleep of 6 hours is a must. All this criteria holds good for anybody for that matter, whether it is a female or the male. And next slide, please. Habits, of course, the smoking and the alcohol should be avoided. Smoking at least for 4 hours, and alcohol for 24 hours. And here, that is here comes that is now the real necessity here in the blood donation nowadays. Like earlier days, also they used to ask, like in LIC policies, they used to ask, yes, of course, they used to just pay lump sum. They have good enough of money, and then they store it, and then they nominate it, and the nominee would sometime they would kill rather to get that lump sum money. Nowadays, the people, they started their very eager to know what is the benefit. If I have to get it after my death, is it possible, and why should I have that nominee, and then that advantage and the benefit for the someone else? What is the benefit for me? It's in the same way people have started asking, what is the benefit for my own sake, for my own body? So we need to tell them, yes, there is a lot of benefit. Like, unlike other donation, body parts of donation, like say the kidney or the eye and all these things. Of course, the kidney, we will be two, we have been provided, and one we can donate it to our kith and kin. But otherwise, the eye and other body parts, usually of course, the days the technology has started that we can donate while we are alive, a part of the liver also nowadays, but not otherwise with that of the heart and the cornea, all these things that is been taken away only after the death of a person. So here lies the advantage and the liveliness of donating the blood, which while we are alive itself, we can donate the blood. We can save as many as 4 to 5 in our setup. I can say the maximum amount of the blood has been required by the pregnant ladies. I am being from the huge setup, the government setup, the largest government setup for the whole of Karnataka. Ours is a 3,750 bedded hospital, and the requirement wherein our the deliveries which happens in our center is more than 100 deliveries will be happening, and the people who depend on my in my hospital is all the poor of the poorest only. So they are the ones that, like, we have done a statistics saying that out of 10 patients, it is nearly 6 to 7 of them will be in need of blood. So that is a sort of dearth we have, the requirement of the blood we have. With that, a huge requirement, of course, the criteria also we should, I understood and I stood front, and I made motivated my own students, the female students, the interns, and the students from the first year of the MBBS, first year of DMLT also I caught hold. All of them I caught hold of the students and started motivating them. First I motivated myself. So let us know, I had to explain to them the benefits of blood, being a blood donor for themselves. So by then, in the year 2014, I came across an article saying that yes, blood donation is the only right way of avoiding or reducing the incidences of heart attack by 80 to 88%. So this was the thing that I started telling everyone. Yes, if you want to care for your heart, like many of my colleagues also, they came front stating that yes, when we go ahead being a B negative or the O negative person, when I go ahead with some other blood banks to donate blood, they avoid us. They say please keep it safely for yourself. You might need it for yourself. Then I thought of motivating myself and motivating them also. Yes, now is the time that it has come up that you need to take care for your own health. You being healthy, then you can think of giving health or sharing the health with the other person. So in that aspect, we females, Dr. Singh also has already told that only 1% of the population has coming front to donate, and the necessity is a huge necessity is there. So we need to come to that level. Unless we, being a human, or the female, especially the female, we also should upgrade our own health to that level, and then we should get motivated and motivate others also. So with this study, I just came to know that the three causes were the reasons for the heart attack rate. One was our own, that is the polluted air, which was automated for the automated vehicles around. So that was the first reason. And the second reason being we could not have any nutritive food at all. All are pesticided and insecticided food, hybrid quality of the food. Where is a nutritive element there? So absolutely no, not at all. So the third element, what they found was the reason for what they found for having the heart attack was the nature, the lifestyle, whether it is a vendor, the vegetable vendor, or otherwise, we have our own tensions, like. So that is the three reasons they found out, and thereby they did not stop, and they went ahead to find out the solution for it, and they found out that the solution is to donate the blood, whether you are a female or a male, at least twice a year. If you donate the blood, your body will recognize this and start giving the benefit of keeping the heart attack rate at bay.
and it reduces the incidence by 80 to 88%. So this was good enough, and we need to care whether we are the negative group or positive group. Many of my colleagues, they said, yes, should we, can we go ahead? We may being negative, yes. Then I said, you need to care for your heart. Please go ahead, bring yourself, uplift your health, and come down to donate, and then you care for yourself, so that this blood donation is the one such a good very good donation, wherein you can give health also, and you can take care of your own health also. So when it has a dual purpose, please come ahead, uplift your health. So I went on charting out what I should do next. A few of the slides. This is a video, a famous video in this Karnataka, which shows uh, people how they die within fraction of a second. They are dying, whether being a journalist or a singer or a news reader or whoever it is, within a fraction of a second they are having the heart attack. They are not aware that they will be having such sort of an they have to face such sort of an death. So this is what is one that we need to avoid. So this can happen only by uplifting and coming friend and donating blood. So I just, next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. Yes, so benefits, of course, to the recipient might be only 1 gram, one pint of the blood. You know, like we all know that it can increase only 1 gram of the blood. But is it only for that reason that we need to give? And we are also aware that the transfusion transmitted diseases can happen with the fever, chills, if it is not given in a proper way in which it has to be given. It can lead to the transfusion transmitted diseases also. So should we, in the stage of a recipient, should we not be in the stage of givers rather than takers? So always I prefer that we should not go to the level of being receiving for the blood. We should uplift our health, whether it is females, whatever it might be, wherever, whichever part of the country we might be, we need to uplift our health and come to the stage of donating the blood rather than receiving the blood. Next slide. So needs for the blood donor, of course, Dr. Singh has elaboratively, extensively, he has covered up. And thalassomic cases, we know that it needs to be fulfilled, the requirement of the thalassomic cases being a genetic disorder, thalassomic or the sickle cell disease, who needs to be given twice, at least twice a month. The transfusion has to happen. And us being a huge center, we have 300 thalassomic patients. So how can we cover up? How can we cover up this huge requirement? So I started uplifting our own students, and today also being the World Blood Donors Day, the YRCA, from the YRCA, the secretary, it was she this time. So she came up with friends, and she was eligible to my good surprise, and they were the first one to donate the blood today. So two of the girls, they came friend to donate the blood. And of course our own ex BMCRI student who was going to retire in a few months, he came up with the wife, to my surprise. And of course, the wife hemoglobin was less, and I suggested her, yes, please go ahead, madam, you can continue. What I did, I started donating the blood at the age of 50. I was not aware till I came down here seriously. I gave a thought about it. How can I improve myself, and how can I give this suggestion to the else also? And when I found it myself, I Googled it out, and I found huge like green leafy vegetables and whatnot, all the things. But I gave a thought, what should I do? How it is a minor. All these things are minor. but minor food particles, but I need to fasten up, to hasten up my blood donation. So how can I do that? Within a short time, I should do it. So I was able to do it with the help of eating the raw beetroot. The raw beetroot is the one. Now people say that eat an apple, keep the doctor away, but not. This is the beautiful that the vegetable that is the beetroot, which is grown underneath the earth, which has the only capacity to absorb the iron from Mother Earth, and that if we consume it early in the morning by peeling off the uh, skin of it and cutting out into 8 slices and eating raw, that would help, yeah, within short time. So I started up with in the month of March. So in the 2014, I donated the blood. My own colleagues, they said, "Ma'am, please don't go ahead." That time, none of the females they were donating much here. So then I said, no, I have to. Then, to my surprise, when I saw my hemoglobin had increased to 12.4 grams. So I said plus or minus 2 is there. So with that point, nothing doing, I have to donate blood. So I donated the blood, nothing happened. And I now at present, my hemoglobin level, I know how to control, how to update my own hemoglobin level. Mine is now 13.5. And I'll see that at least twice a year, I donate the blood. So this I started finding out my own secrets and sharing the secrets across with my students, female students, and they were very happy. And many of them they have also tested themselves by not taking what I suggested and going ahead with that of tablets. The people who were going ahead with that of tablets, they had a lot of other problems also, burning stomach and all these things. And they said, ma'am, no, it is not possible. And they failed in it. And then they followed my suggestion by taking beetroot. And that was the one correction I did it. The next was to our hospital, the government hospital, the people who depend on our hospital were all the ragi growers, the farmers. So the market is very close by. Next to our hospital is a huge market. So they used to dump their whatever they have grown, and they used to come down to our hospital for a checkup. So when we found them being ragi growers, ragi being 90% of having the iron and also the calcium, I do suggest gave a correction also for them to go ahead to consume ragi porridge early in the morning. So this also it helped them. I also suggested them, gave them the recipe how well within a short time, within 10 minutes, they can prepare this ragi porridge and they can consume it hot or cold. And that had helped them, many of them, to improve their hemoglobin as well as their weight also. So now the next point was, since we used to have camps earlier to this corona season, we used to have camps in MNCs also. So there also many of them used to come front to donate blood. They wanted to donate blood to look at, they were all good looking, huge, hefty, healthy and all. When when they come front with respect of hemoglobin, we used to find it around 6 grams, 7 grams, like that. So then I suggested, no, this is not right on your part to be with this. They were all willing, and we were the ones, we were losing them. The willingness is one side, and losing is on the other side. So to improve over that, then I suggested, I gave them. I cannot give them like earlier to this Corona season. They used to, we know very much that they used to leave the house early in the morning by 2:30, 4:30, like that in the cabs. I cannot ask them to cook this ragi porridge, nor I can ask them to peel off the skin in the midnight, peel the skin of the beetroot and consume it. No, it was very difficult for me. So then I suggested them some 4 dry fruits. The dry fruits, what I suggested was, one was the anjir, the dry fig, not one, just 3 or 5 of the anjir, and dates 3 or 5 again, resins 10 to 15 of the resins, and 10 to 15 of the badam or almonds. So all put together, it will be coming to the hand fist of it, and that if they can just wash it and put it into the box, and while they are going in the cab, they can eat it off. And in that way, when I suggested such things, many of them, they consumed, they followed this, and they were happy. In the next camp, they came front, and then they donated the blood. So our collection also improved a bit, about 2% of it. It really it helped us to improve our collection of the units. So hereby, with this, I can say I have, at this present situation, at this present hour, I have improved from the 2014 to now. 15% of the girls, they are coming friend, and we have improved in collection of the blood, I can say. So this is a good thing, and I do suggest, I do share this the secret of how to improve their hemoglobin and the calcium. So if in case of the weight is less, I do tell them you consume this ragi porridge twice a day, morning as well as night, including their breakfast and dinner. They should not exclude that. So in this many of the other pictures, what you can see is all many of the girls are also coming front to donate the blood. In each of their postings, I will see that they will never go out without donating. They are very happy with to take this experience. I do guide them. Being female or the male, they have little apprehension. They have phobia for needle. I tell them no, not at all. It is as sweet as an ant bite. Please come, friend, and donate. And they do agree. Yes, it is very sweet. Absolutely, there is no pain at all. It is rather less than an IM injection. So thereby I tell them, yes, the IM injections are painful because we do push some amount of medicine there, the chemical reaction has to happen. Here, we are not at all pushing, and thereby no reaction. It is only the blood will be extracted, and it is not time consuming also. Within 5 minutes, within 7 minutes, we need to collect it, and that's how it is painless. You please come, friend. I just tell all these things, and when I tell them, yes, they do come, friend, and take the experience. And in one of the pictures, at one time, I have noticed one of the girls, she was very much adamant to donate the blood on her mother's birthday. So when we checked her BP, we found that her BP was very low. Then she was very much adamant. We tried it our level best, but then she said, "Yes, my mom's blood pressure also is less. My aunt's is also less." Then I found it to be a genetic one. I suggested for my prophylactic way, and then to give care for her, I asked her to lick the salt 3 times and to consume water. So after collecting the blood also, she didn't never uh, gave any problematic excuses. She was very happy, and she's a very regular donor now. So with this, I think it is made clear that that we being a female, we should not hinder back. We should come front. In all the fields we are front. Why not in this, when it has got a lot of benefit, health benefit for our sake, for our own health? Why should we get back? We should also come front, help ourselves to help others, is my good quote, and that's where I stand by to
Thank you.
promote this.
Sure,
Thank you
sure.
so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Srilata. Three cheers to you. I mean, increasing blood collection by 15% in women population is absolutely commendable when we know the hemoglobin level is a huge challenge in the, especially in the women population in India. And as you rightly said, in the case of maternal mortality rate, MMR, we have really not done a very good job. We are in company of Congo and Pakistan. So statistically, if we get into infant mortality rate or MMR and the millennial goal, is a lot to do. And what I was talking to every one of you during the public health discussion, that all those are huge challenges and they are related to RCH, reproductive child health. And we have to do a lot of work on the RCH side. And what work you have done with your effort and your personal engagement with people is really, really very impressive and very, attractive. So I think Dr. Manisha has a question for you.
Yeah, very many congratulations, Dr. Srilata. It's very inspiring because
Thank you, ma'am. Thank
I
you.
will say that, even I may not qualify as a blood donor because recently I discovered my hemoglobin was so low and I never noticed it because I was so engrossed in working.
Yeah.
And then I had to really work on, I never had the access to, I never thought of ragi porridge, and, now I
Okay.
work on it and I'll try, because looking at my weight, I just could never imagine my hemoglobin would be like around 10 or something, and I never
Yeah.
noticed it. It's a beautiful work you are doing, and I think it's very inspirational for everybody, and the
Thank
topic
you, ma'am.
itself was very
Thank you.
interesting. And women donors, I mean, we want to donate, but due
Yes.
to the structural and health problems, issues, and nowadays, when we go to the colleges and all, we find, you may be, very thin and size 0, but you
Yes.
cannot be, low in your hemoglobin. This should be the
Yes.
message we need to put across to all the women who can come forward. Definitely, women have that kind of an altruistic attitude, no doubt about it. So I won't doubt
Yes.
that. They are always in the giving mode, and they're, doing so much for their families and everything. But yes, very interesting and very nice. I'm
Yeah.
really
Thank you, ma'am.
overwhelmed.
Thank you.
It was
Thank
really
you.
very good. And I think, as you rightly said, Manisha, somewhere in this journey of maternal instinct and nurturing instinct, somewhere you have to be slightly selfish towards yourself also to take care of your health. And I think that's a very valid point. And zero size is really not a healthy size. So we shouldn't get confused that zero size is a good size and healthy size. So I think we should stay away from this marketing gimmicks. And as Dr. Shilda has done very impressive work, and we all should really congratulate her. And
Yeah,
this
yeah.
actually,
Thank you, ma'am.
when she was talking to me on this, with our team, and I said, yeah, I mean, I have not heard this, and it is the right time, and it is the right day, and a right story to share at this platform where we will have audience from all over. So I think it was a great work, and thank you, Dr. Sri Lata. And I
Thank you,
think
sir.
we have just
Thank you.
few minutes to go, and
Wonderful presentation, Dr. Srilata. Really appreciate it. It's like a lot of motivation for the female donors.
yes, yes.
Thank you,
I
sir.
think we
Thank you.
have to take help of Dr. Sri Lata everywhere on this women donor population. She has done
Definitely, and I'm so
Yes.
inspired. I'm definitely going to work on it. It's very
yes,
Yes,
interesting.
yes, yes.
I
yes,
just wanted to say one thing, that when we are talking of the government taking up initiatives, I work for a huge government setup, and
Okay.
I've always been requesting government to make infectious disease hospitals. And
right.
when we can have such kind of affluent looking airports and GVK looking after the whole system, I think we should go for very good healthcare system in the public sector also,
True, true.
and we can develop it. Definitely, we can develop it.
Yes.
Yes.
I think it's very important to look at the now public healthcare agenda, and people like, you have been so on the forefront of public healthcare and these issues. And in your position of responsibility at AIMS, I'm sure their contribution will come on forefront. So I think we are almost at the time, and would like to thank everyone. But there was one question, and any of the speakers can take one question was relevant. Rest you most of you have answered that. What was the difference in blood collection between 19 and 20? Like, when you look at year wise, how much was the difference? I mean, how much percent was low on the collection side? If, I mean, anyone can take this question.
Truly, it's related to data, so I'm not aware.
Okay.
We can check on it, and we can, you can send it to the participants later, because it's,
Sure, sure. Most
yeah.
definitely. It's a very valid, because the data matter, so we should be, like, factually correct. We could totally agree. So would like to thank, Sri Lata, Ravi, Manisha, and Gajendra. You have been so gracious. You brought so much experience, so much energy to this forum, and we have a lot of young people with on this forum and listening you. And I'm sure a lot of them will get motivated and donate the blood and look at that. And what I liked very much about Gajendra, that he said this new generation. I'm raising a teenage daughter, 22 years old, going to be 23. They have their mind of their own. She donated blood just few days back. She got a news that there is a need of blood and from our society, and I took her to HCG. So I think they are very well prepared. they are, as Gajendra has very rightly said, they want to experiment with the life. They are not the collectors. In fact, I mean, I was clicking a picture and she said, don't take my picture. I'm doing it for myself. So
Yeah.
that is the way they do not want to have stories and the
Yes.
pictures in sense of the tangible part. They want to live the non-tangible part of their life. They want to live that experience than the transaction, in fact, if I had to put it more elegantly. So I think it is a very, very valid point which Gajendra has made, and I feel it just resonated. And what Manisha has said about the public health care and how much problem we have faced, it should be done. And as Ravi has said, so much can be done through the donation of blood and guiding them through vaccination. Great. And of course, Dr. Sri Lata very, very elegantly presented the motivation and the on the women donor population. So I would like to thank each one of you. You have been a wonderful speakers, so much of knowledge sharing experience, and my tea and coffee and a dinner remains due to all of you, which would have been a pleasure to have you. But unfortunately, maybe I can do it on Zomato or Swiggy, but uh, but that remains due. So thank you very much
Yes.
on
Great.
coming on this
Thank
forum.
you.
It was an absolute pleasure to have you all, and can't thank you enough.
Thank you so
Thank you,
Thank
much.
you
sir.
so much,
Thank you,
Ranjit,
sir.
for making me a
Thank you,
part
madam.
of this lovely
Thank you.
evening.
Thank you
Thank you
very
so
much.
much.